And we're live. Hey guys, this is Jan from DoraHacks and welcome to the workshop of the Grant Factory. Today it's the second workshop session and I'm super excited to have here two speakers. There's also Joran joining us today, PG and Nikki. And I would head it over soon to Joran. And before we start, we're super excited to support the Taiko hackathon and very excited to see all the incredible projects building on top of Taiko. So without further ado, Joran, you can take it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jan. And thank you for DoorHacks for helping us put everything together. They are our go-to hackathon platform. So all people like submitting projects is going to be through the DoorHacks platform. And then if there's any questions about that, maybe we can talk about that towards the end. But I'm super excited to jump into these workshops. If this is your first time hearing about the Grant Factory, I want to just give you a brief rundown of what it's all about. As the name suggests, we want to crank out grants, but not just any grants. We want to crank out the best grants for our ecosystem. And so we have a large treasury waiting for people to bring their projects and access. And we wanted to attach a hackathon onto the front of that to ease people in and support people on the pathway to deploying a project on Taiko and preparing a grant that gets submitted to our grant committee, gets approved, and continues releasing funding for your projects 2, 4, 6 months down the line. So we have a 100K prize pool broken up into 3 tracks: the work hard, play hard, do good tracks. You can take a look at the DoorHacks site for all of the details on what qualifies for what track, as well as some ideas for building a project in one of those tracks. Yeah, the idea is that you're going to be submitting a project and deploying it on Taiko, as well as creating a polished grant proposal to qualify you to access this 100K prize pool. And like I mentioned, on the end of that, you can also gain some extra funding for your project beyond the hackathon. And that brings me to the sessions that we have going on today. We wanted to make sure that you guys are best prepared for building new businesses in the space, as well as preparing your grant proposal. So we're going to have PG come up and talk about what it means to effectively bring your project to market. So effective go-to-market strategy. And followed by PG, we're going to have Nikki come up and talk about how we can empower you guys to build a grant through the grant writing process. So yeah, with no more delays, we're going to kick things off. I'm going to pass it over to PG, and he's going to take us through some effective GTM.
All right, let's do it. Thanks, Joran. Thanks to the whole DoraHacks team. Hi, everyone. My name is Pier Giacomo Palmisani. I go by PG, way easier, way shorter. I'm head of gaming here at Taiko Labs. And today I want to talk a little bit about something that I think it's very key in crypto. Sometimes it's not really well considered by teams. And that is like how to effectively go to market. So launch your product, make sure that people care about it, people want to use it, and how to scale from there. So I think a little bit of housekeeping, just quick agenda. I'm gonna start by asking you, and you guys should ask yourself what type of builder are you? I'm gonna go over real quick about the traditional go-to-market strategies that we see and we witnessed in Web 2, and as opposed to how effective go-to-market strategies in crypto are. There's definitely a lot of differences that I will go over. I will talk a little bit about airdrops. You probably, if you're in the space, you probably heard about airdrops. Maybe you participated in some. And I think this could be a good and powerful tool if used correctly. Then I'll go over, what's the difference between a product and a token. Big difference. Oftentimes people do not see it. And last but not least, I'll talk about something that I think it can be a little bit controversial in this space, but can also be an effective tool if leveraged properly. And those are influencers and KOLs. But let's start again from, a very, very, very important question. What type of builder are you, right? As you're approaching this hackathon, I think it's very important that you ask yourself this question. And there is no right and wrong answer, right? So, are you someone that, wants to hack around and find out, as in like, maybe you have some ideas, you wanna test it, or maybe you just wanna, you're just entering Web3, you wanna get your hands dirty, you don't really know what you're doing, you don't know what ecosystem to build on, so you're just like approaching this world. I think hackathons are the best first step as a builder. So if that's what you want to do, then embrace the hackathon experience. Do take the most out of it. Meet as many people as possible. Talk to as many people as possible, and try to understand how you fit in. There are also people that want to contribute to a specific ecosystem. So, for example, Taiko, but maybe they don't really know like what they want to build, right? Maybe they don't know what a certain ecosystem needs, or maybe they don't have like a fully fledged idea. That's totally fine. I think hackathons are a great way to get involved if you're this profile, because you can meet co-founders, you can meet team members, you can get inspired by others. Maybe you realize that a certain ecosystem is not for you, but it's good to acknowledge again, like what type of profile you are. But maybe you want to launch a successful product, so you maybe now you're falling more into like the entrepreneur side of things, right? There's a lot of hype in crypto. You understand that there's a certain narrative that can be very powerful, and there's a need for products in that specific niche, and you want to build something in that regard, no matter what, right? I think that's also very, very useful, and this is definitely true in very nascent ecosystems like Taiko. For example, like we do lack certain building blocks that other more mature ecosystems have, and I think this is a great way to get involved, right? Because you can fill a gap and you can become a leader in a certain ecosystem. And last but definitely not least, you have a clear vision and a long-term goal of what you want to build, right? And that is kind of like the opposite way of my previous point. And this kind of like you want to build something regardless of the ecosystem you're building on, right? So if that's the case, then you got to realize like what you need on the product side, but also like what is the best ecosystem partner that you can have, and kind of like the upsides of certain ecosystems. So as these are definitely like a mental exercise that I encourage you go through, because it's very important to realize as you go through a hackathon, because it will help you throughout the process. It will help you become more efficient, and it will help you set better goals overall. So talking a little bit more about go-to-market strategies, right? So in traditional like Web 2, as like you need to like launch and scale, a product, most of the times a software product. You definitely need to do like, market analysis, which means, I know it might sound obvious, but like, I have a potential solution. Is there actually a problem, right? For the solution I can bring to the table. If the answer is yes, then of course you have to do a little bit of competitor analysis, see what's out there, identify your initial target audience. That could be B2B or B2C. Maybe what you're trying to sell is not tailored for retail or consumers, but it's tailored for enterprises, right? And if that's the case, then you want to go talk to those businesses. So it's very key that you gather and activate what is called like a lead user base. These are like people that really care about your product. They see a lot of value for it, and they will help you. They will build it with you, right? They will, give you a lot of feedback, potentially even start paying for it. And these are very like powerful users that in traditional Web 2 it takes a lot of time and potentially a lot of money to identify, right? You go over competition and demand. We said that. Now, if you've identified your user base, you have a good product, you need to launch it, and you need to make sure that people care about it. So traditional startups, they spend a good amount of money on user acquisition, just overall marketing. And as you do that, you also want to nail down your distribution channels, right? So how are people gonna be using your product? How are you gonna reach them? And that's an additional step that will take extra effort and extra money to achieve. So I think that crypto and Web3 overall, one of the value that this industry has brought to the table is that some of these processes that in traditional tech take longer and are more expensive are cut off. And let me tell you why. So for example, like if you want to launch a Web3 product, right? One of the first exercises you definitely want to do is identify, as I said before, the right ecosystem, right? Why? Because choosing the right ecosystems mean that you already have a market, right? You're building for an audience that already care or supposedly care about what you're going to be building, of course, given the quality of what you're building. So this kind of like takes a little bit of work off like founders' shoulders. So for example, like if you're building in the EVM space, that you can have access to like all the people using Ethereum, its L2s. Maybe you want to build in the Alt-L1 landscape, so maybe you want to build on Solana, on Cosmos, on Near, on some other ecosystems. You already know that there is a user base there that you can leverage, right? So once you have identified that, the second natural step is that you should secure official backing from from key ecosystem players. What that means is, either foundations, of course, that goes from money, but beyond to full support. So marketing, technical support, business insights, and then other things if you plan to launch a token or whatnot. Those are all things that strong ecosystems can bring to the table. And I think it's very, very important that you identify your partners and are able to align with them. Then, of course, you need to build a strong and active community that cares about your product, and you should try to iterate your product for them. So take as much feedback as you can from these people, because these are the people that are actually passionate about what you're building and they actually care beyond the speculation and hype. So these are the people that you want to make happy the most, right? And again, they're going to be your ambassadors at the end of the day. You also want to have like a clear narrative and be able to effectively communicate it. Unfortunately, or maybe for the good, I don't know, it's mixed feelings here, but our industry is by far regulated by narrative. People chase narratives. This is not bad overall. Narratives mean innovation. Some narratives are good, some narratives are bad. Make sure that what you're building actually makes sense. If you're somebody that can create a narrative, you will have all the upside in this world. If you're writing an existing narrative, make sure that what you're building is actually novel and useful. Another very easy step that you can take, but requires a lot of hustling, is to partner with other projects, first within the ecosystem that you've chosen, but then also try to go outside, right? So try like shout outs, maybe like free like giveaways, just like overall collaboration with other projects will bring you extra awareness and extra attention. And again, like it's the easiest and cheapest way for you to get your product out there and get people outside of your audience to care about. And that goes hand in hand with like my next point, which is you gotta put yourself out there. You have to be the face of your project. I know people in this industry definitely care about anonymity. You can still be anon, but you want to be out there, communicate with our community, make sure they hear from you. Don't go radio silence for some long amount of times. That's how you kill a project at the end of the day. So you want to make sure you give constant updates, and potentially, share as much as your roadmap as you possibly can. Of course, roadmaps can be changed. There's hiccups, change of priorities and whatnot, but make sure to communicate effectively to your community, because if you don't do so, then these people are gonna leave, for sure. Then have a plan to properly reward your loyal users, one way or another. This industry, of course, has the power of issuing tokens, or NFTs, assets that have value. At the end of the day, people care about that. Of course, a lot of people care about that for speculation, but that doesn't mean that your key audience will not care at all about your token or your NFTs, right? So you want to make sure to reward them properly, and this is again the best way to accrue value to what you're building. And of course, it goes without saying, winning a hackathon is a great way to get your name out there, yourself known, and to start getting some free marketing, getting people to start caring about your product. So some pros and cons about going to market in Web3. Again, as I said, you by default inherit a certain ecosystem user base. You can definitely also go multi-chain. Many projects do that. I think it's fine. That will also just get your pie bigger. But be careful, because certain communities are very close-minded. So they just prefer native projects. They don't, so maybe if you go multi-chain, then they see us oh, these people are abandoning us. So be very careful, and also try not to pass as a kind of a grant shopper, right? That's definitely not good behavior in this industry. So again, on the other side, you see, a cons is mercenary behavior, and people, can spot that very easily, and they can crucify you for that. So be careful and strike a good balance between the two. Marketing is definitely cheaper in crypto. You can go viral way easier. People can start caring about your project, way faster and way easier. And again, customer and user acquisition. Of course, we have way less users than traditional tech, but at the same time, attracting that first initial user base is something you can do with very little money. Also, another thing that I really love about this industry is people are very willing to collaborate, even if there's clear competitors that are competing against each other. Teams oftentimes collaborate. We do so, for example, with other layer 2s. We work together on research. We share insights. So I think that's definitely something very powerful and something you wanna leverage. Your product can scale way faster than Web2, right? It's again, if it's something that people care about and it's needed, people are gonna use it right away, right? So this is definitely a pro of this industry. And last but not least, community will work for you, right? So that initial lead users that I said before, they will become your ambassadors. They will become invested in the project, and they will work for free for you. So do not underestimate these people, and make sure that you can engage them properly and as much as possible. On the other side, of course, I said about mercenary behavior. This is definitely something that is a con of this industry. So people say they care about what you're building. At the end of the day, they just want to farm a token maybe, and then leave. So beware of this type of behaviors. The trade-off of scaling faster is also that the attention span is way shorter, because a project can become very hypey, very in a very short term, but then also like fade away very quickly. There are plenty of examples throughout like different cycles of this industry. So yeah, this is something that we all know. So make sure you stay relevant for the long term. It's easy to copy in crypto. It's hard to innovate. Easy to copy because a lot of protocols have just literally like, forked something that was already out there. Maybe just change the front end and kind of like the branding and launch it. And they were successful. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people that do so also are not successful. Of course, the best way to establish yourself is to try to innovate. But also, as I say in my last point here, you have to find the right balance between anticipating narratives and writing them. There's been like plenty of examples. I think like one of the best ones is the whole SocialFi narrative that, it's hot right now. There were already like some SocialFi projects back in 2017 and 2018 that didn't make it anywhere because it wasn't the right time, right? So make sure that, if you want to innovate, it's the right time and people actually care about. And if you want to write a narrative, do it as, with a product that, people want to use. Because again, the space is oversaturated. So another, I think these are very, very important points. So what's up with airdrops? Are they dead? Are they useful? I think overall airdrops are a good and effective user acquisition mechanism. It's something that, of course, is very novel to this industry. And it's something that, you can use, right? You have to do it properly and right. Plan, for post airdrop incentives. Make sure that, people can stay involved and engaged. Airdrops are great for user acquisition, not so good for user retention. We will talk throughout this hackathon about our Trailblazers program, which is something we're running as an incentive program, and it's working out pretty well. And it's guaranteeing us retention after we acquired like our initial user base. If you make it that far, definitely avoid being high FDV, fully diluted valuation project, because it's kind of like a death spiral at the end of the day. So it's better to like come out if you launch a token with a lower FDV and then scale it up. Definitely have an effective anti-Sybil mechanism. Jorin can tell you more about that for sure. It's a pain point that we have personally experienced, and it's something that you need to plan ahead for. Quest platform like Galaxy are useful, and it's something that can definitely drive a lot of attention and users leading up to your airdrop, but it's not the end game. So make sure you plan beyond them. Farmers can be helpful. They can help you like grow, show stats. It's something that will definitely be helpful if you want to raise. But again, like beware, because a lot of these people are kind of part of the when token crowd, which is a behavior you do not want to like fall into, right? Like the when token crowd, just do not engage with them. Also, do not wait too long if you plan to launch a token to launch your token. Because otherwise people will leave, right? And very important point here, do not try to make everybody happy. It's just not going to happen. There will always be somebody that is not going to be happy. It's okay. Just go, move forward. Make sure the people that you actually care about, the user you actually care about, are happy, and you will be successful. There's a big difference between shipping a product and launching a token. A lot of people in this industry often forget about it. First and foremost, ask yourself if you actually really need a token. If the answer is no, then do not do it. Do not launch it. If you put out a good product, if it's sustainable, just keep grinding. If it's useful but not sustainable, open source it and people will use it and move on to the next project. It's totally fine doing so in crypto, but don't get yourself into the weeds of launching a token, because that's a whole different beast. Try to have a product before you issue a token. This might sound obvious, but trust me, it's not. When I say issue a token, both fungible and non-fungible, right? A lot of, even like, on the gaming side, a lot of games like they launch like a like an NFT with maybe a trailer, and then there's no product, there's no game for like 2+ years, right? You will not be successful if you do so. If you need to issue a token pre-product, it's okay. It's a good way to raise funds, but definitely have a clear roadmap so people don't feel like they're getting scammed. This is very, very important. Also very important, spend time crafting proper tokenomics. If you're not an expert, hire an expert. It's money well spent. If you screw up with tokenomics, that's most likely a death sentence. And also, if you're launching a token, again, you're not shipping a product, but launching a token, be extra careful about the legal side of it, because you do not want to get caught up into the legality of things. So if you need to move and relocate because you're not in a friendly jurisdiction, be ready to do so. And that's why also you should be extra careful before launching a token. My last point, KOLs, it's definitely like, a hyped word, something, that I'm not a big fan of, because influencers can be annoying, definitely, but they also can be useful. Not all influencers are annoying. Some influencers are actually, thoughtful individuals that actually take time doing proper analysis, and are actually, care about their user base and their audience, right? And they just don't want to dump on them. So again, spend some time aligning with the right ones. Quality over quantity, absolutely. Do not overspend for a lot of KOLs. Make sure you spend with for a few ones. Also because if a few KOLs talk about you, it can be that other KOLs will pick up the buzz for free. It has happened actually for a couple of projects on Taiko. And it was a good loop, right? So do not go out and overspend for KOLs. Be strategic on geography and communities. Make sure if you have to engage KOLs, do it in certain communities that you care about and geographies that you want to reach, and not just because it's a big KOL, right? And also make sure, again, this goes in the broader argument about leveraging your ecosystem partners. Taiko has KOLs, other ecosystems have KOLs. As you enter an ecosystem, you inherit by default their marketing strategies and their arsenal. So make sure to leverage that before going out and spending your funds. So I see I'm at time. I'll pause it here. Sorry, I was planning maybe for some questions. I hope this was useful. Be happy to answer any questions. But thank you for listening. These are my socials if you want to reach out. I'm always open. Feel free to DM me. And with that said, I'll head it back to Jorin.
Amazing presentation, PG. Thank you so much. There are a couple questions from the audience, and I have got a couple questions of my own. Let's start with the audience questions, though. There was 2 questions here. Can you give any pointers for building a strong and active community? And what are the key elements that? Oh yeah, there it is on the screen. That's awesome.
I see.
Yeah.
Great questions. Start from the people that you're closer with. Tell them about what you're building. They will be excited. Of course, make sure that you have everything set up before you do that. And what I mean by that is all your socials, right? Get your X account, your project X account up. Make sure you have a Discord, because if you have call to actions for people, you can redirect them to specific links. Once you have this setup, make sure you're engaged daily. And with time, you will see who's actually useful and who's actually there to shield or not to provide much value. You will see, you will feel it. It comes organically. Another thing that I think is very important, participate in Twitter Spaces. It was definitely, they were definitely hotter a couple of years ago. Now the numbers on crypto Twitter Spaces have declined as opposed to maybe some other topics like politics. But nevertheless, it's a great way to just broaden your community and get your name out there. So DM people on Twitter if you see like certain spaces where they're talking about, something, like like a topic where you're building, and it's adjacent to what you're doing. Tune in, ask questions, and I think that's a great way. And yeah, also like I think also like don't neglect IRL. If you live in a place where there's a crypto community, maybe there's some meetups and whatnot, go out there, like go to every meetup you can go to, meet as many people as you can. I think that's another great way, right? We live in the in the digital world for sure, but IRL is definitely great, especially to build like stronger bonds.
Absolutely, getting out into that meet space, and
Yes.
the old way of meeting people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then another question here is around narratives, and I had my own questions too. And there was a question from the audience, so I'll kind of try and combine them together. What kind of narratives do you think are interesting, particularly for Taiko? One of the main things that you're talking about is choosing the right ecosystem. So like what kind of narratives are Taiko really is Taiko really set up for? And yeah, so the other question there, any examples of that? I know you mentioned SocialFi, you yourself are head of gaming, but you're also on the grants committee. So like, what kind of projects are you seeing across the space, and which ones kind of are standing out for you?
Great question. Two sides for my answer. We have our own narrative as Taiko as a protocol, which is the based rollup narrative. Very important to the overall Ethereum narrative. Do not discard this type of kind of like deep narratives, maybe more foundational narratives that might feel like not that tangible. They are very important long term, because at the end of the day, tech matters one way or another. As more pertinent to like our ecosystems, definitely, of course, I think gaming is just like a natural vessel for like user acquisition and user adoption in this industry overall. In terms of numbers, we've seen it on Taiko already. We've been live for like little over 3 months, and we've had some great numbers on the gaming side, in terms of users, in terms of transactions. So that's definitely something that is hot for me. SocialFi is definitely interesting, but we are an ecosystem that still needs like a lot of building blocks and a lot of things that are not there yet. So there's a lot of opportunities, right? So and then again, like it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, like what type of builders are you, right? Because we need all type of builders. We need people to build those building blocks, even though they're not really like hot narratives, because there already are like products out there in other ecosystems. But on Taiko, we still need that. And for Taiko overall, I think like when it comes to like consumer apps, things that like can become like usable for the broader audience out there and the broader world, and it's not like that crypto-y. I think that's going to be very interesting, and that of course touches upon different like a whole wide spectrum. But again, like issuing assets, incentivizing users, these are all like killer use cases of crypto, and we can bring it to the table for traditional like Web2 models. So finding the right fit for that, I think it's a very compelling narrative overall. And meme coins are hot. It's fun. Yes. It's very easy to launch one. That's probably that deserves a whole different go-to-market talk just for meme coins. But yeah, those have product market fit. I see them as more of like a short-term thing, but nevertheless, they're fun. People care about it, so why not?
Yeah, that's true. I don't think we've seen our first like super viral meme coin yet. Not suggesting that people build a meme coin for the Grant Factory.
Hey, why not?
As a side project, maybe that's something someone listening is interested in doing. I think another piece to highlight there on why Taiko is what you mentioned of us being a base chain. But in the very near future, we're also moving towards like this base boosted model. And a key piece of technology that we're building to make that happen is pre-confirmations. This is like on the very bleeding edge of technical development, research and development. And so right now, while we are beholden to the Ethereum block times, pre-confirmations is going to allow us to go sub Ethereum block times, and in the most extreme awesome case, sub-second block times. And so I think that really unlocks a wide variety of use cases, not least of which is gaming and SocialFi. But I think a whole new suite of applications will become feasible when we have that very quick, secure finality and block times. So hopefully we'll have another technical kind of talk about what that means. But I just wanted to mention that while we're on the topic here of why Taiko, basically.
I think it's great. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
One quick thing. I think if you're a builder that wants to build a crypto product for the ages, then it becomes crucial to choose an ecosystem, not because of the hype, the liquidity, the money you can get, but because of its technical fundamentals. Because if you're building on something that goes offline, gets hacked, gets rugged, and you're actually caring about your business, then your business will be affected, which means you will end up like destroying your business. I'm not like, it's totally fine. Like you can build on like hype and narrative and be successful and build cool products. But again, like if you want to build like for the next decade, for the next 2 decades, then it becomes very critical to choose like very solid infrastructure. And I think that's what we're building here at Taiko.
Absolutely. I think just like wrapping up this section, you mentioned the Trailblazer program. I think it's worth reiterating. I've been talking about it throughout our talks, and I'll continue talking about it. But that's another kind of non-financial incentive that we have for the grants, the hackathon, is that if and when you launch your project, you will also gain access to the Trailblazer program. Highly suggest checking it out. It's a user acquisition, but it's also a developer acquisition and retention program. So as a new dApp, you'll be able to compete with other dApps, and we have a 10% of the Taiko supply set aside for the Trailblazer program that's going to last us for multiple years. And the more the better the apps that you bring in, the more users are going to use them, and the more kind of points you earn on the leaderboard, and you unlock additional funds for your project. So I think that's really worth mentioning, that it also helps you retain users, and it also helps us retain you as great developers, and really aligns all of the incentives there for us all to build great projects and build a very strong ecosystem. Is there any last comment you'd like to make, PG, before we move on to the next section?
No, I already took enough time off Nikki's. Sorry, Nikki. My bad. No, just build something fun, have fun in the hackathon. I think that's the most important thing. Make some friends, and just ship it. Don't ship an MVP. Don't even if it's like cranky or whatever, just ship it, and then iterate on that. I think that's the key thing of hackathons. But with that said, thanks a lot, Jarin. Thanks a lot to the whole DoraHacks team. Hopefully I'll be back. I don't know, maybe another talk, but and good luck to all the hackers and all the builders.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great to be able to plumb your big brain on all of these topics some more. So you're definitely welcome back to have another talk. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you later. All right. Yeah. With no further delay. Wow, Nikki, you swapped into the same spot as PG so fast. Welcome,
exactly.
Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to slink off into the background and let you take it away.
Sure. So thank you so much, guys, for having me. Super excited to be here. And super excited actually to drive this topic around grants. So navigating grants processes. And as you may know, it can be quite tricky at times. And, different actually foundations, organizations have different processes. And here my focus is actually to provide how it's done at Taiko, give some good tips so you guys are successful when applying for grants, and some stuff that you can keep in mind while actually navigating the process. And when, for example, if you're building something on Taiko or in any other ecosystem, for you to kind of keep in the back of your mind what's really important to do in order to be successful. So let's start, right? So what are the grants? What is their role? Like a lot of the times we tend to look at grants from a very wrong perspective, I would say. Sometimes, like I can tell you from my experience from 2021, 2022, because back then, like lots of foundations were actually giving out the grants and there wasn't much of a due diligence or follow-ups with the projects, and essentially also grants were perceived by the projects as easy tools to get like funding, and essentially like not a lot of the projects would go back to foundations and report on the milestones they have achieved. Sometimes like projects wouldn't actually deliver the promised milestones or products. And essentially, like if you look at grants, they're tools for fostering innovation, community development, and the growth of dApps and other solutions, right? So they are kind of like an oil that you need to oil the machine in order for it to function, to go further. And essentially, the idea behind the Web3 grants is to encourage the builders, to provide the means for the builders to develop and build like different dApps, protocols, tools, open source infrastructure that could benefit like the broader ecosystem, right? Like, and we've seen good examples in the past, like very solid solutions emerging from the grants program, like not necessarily within the Taiko ecosystem, but like with the Ethereum Foundation, Solana, Gitcoin grants, and so on. And most of the organizations nowadays provide different like builder grants for a variety of purposes. So you have, for example, Ethereum Foundation grants, you have Near Foundation grants, you have Solana providing grants, you have Gitcoin grants, for example. And if you want to learn more about the specificities of those grants, you have to actually go like visit their websites and see what are they requiring, right? And what are the areas they're focusing on? So like, for example, when it comes to more mature ecosystems, like when we're talking about Solana, let's say, they have a specific focus like as to what are the burning issues or problems or solutions they need in order like for them to move further, and essentially for those like solutions like they do provide grants. And in our case, since Taiko is still early, we are focused like on enabling the growth of the ecosystem and the adoption of Taiko, and essentially we are providing different partner grants for dApps, for infrastructure providers, or for any interesting solutions that could come into our ecosystem and actually make an impact within our ecosystem. So since we're still early, we'll really love to kind of like, we entertain the idea to attract the builders into our ecosystem and like finding ways of working with them. So here's actually like what's really cool that I would like to share with all of you is something to keep also in mind. I think it's like kind of essential or imperative for any project. So how does like a project journey look in a nutshell, right? So first, what you do, let's say you are building something, you're exploring different ecosystem, and all of a sudden, let's say you hear about Taiko. You go to our website, you check about Taiko, you check the advantages. Why is Taiko different, right? Like, for example, one of the key questions that I constantly get in this space is like why Taiko? Why do we need another rollup? And sometimes it's just a matter of education where I need to explain to people like, okay, we're a base rollup. I need something different compared to the other rollups. And then, of course, like with any other project or with any other ecosystem, you go also check the community, you go and check the documents, right? You familiarize yourself with the technical stack, you familiarize yourself with the ecosystem, you familiarize yourself with the other stuff, like for the social media. And you're like, okay, so this looks something interesting for me and I can see myself pursuing it. And essentially you decide to apply for a grant. So there's a process for the grant application, and there are a couple of tracks that I will show you now later. And then like you apply for a grant, and let's say you receive a grant, right? You start building your solution on Taiko. If your solution already exists to a certain extent, you kind of like deploy that solution on Taiko. Then we'll of course engage in marketing, we'll bring visibility to the project. So like the ecosystem and the community hears about you, you become part of the ecosystem. And then it's all about like also, right, you growing, like reaching certain metrics. If you're a DeFi protocol, let's say you're like targeting certain TVL growth maybe, or potentially monthly active users, or if you're like looking to reach certain volumes. And of course, like the idea is like, when we bring projects into our ecosystem at Taiko, we also want to ensure that projects within our ecosystem, like they collaborate with each other. So it's not like, of course, the competition is great, but we also want the projects like this from the same verticals to start collaborating with each other to kind of come up with novel ideas, build new products. And essentially, when you build new products, you also like kind of build a community around it. And as a matter of fact, like down the road, right, whether you build a new product or you don't build a new product, you also might go for fundraising, let's say, and like fundraising, what do I mean by that? Like fundraising from the ecosystem funds, for example. Also, Taiko does invest in its ecosystem projects as well. I mean, we do participate in the fundraising rounds as well. And then, like, for example, also your goal as a project, once you're in a specific ecosystem, is to become to a certain degree an ecosystem champion and to help onboard the other projects into the ecosystem as well. And then, like, you know, every project has a great experience. Like, they also refer new projects, and like, you know, you just keep on onboarding. Like, you keep on becoming like instrumental parts of the ecosystem, which enables further ecosystem growth. And so how to apply for grants? Essentially, when it comes to grant application on Taiko, it's very simple. You actually go to this website. I've pasted the link here. And as I mentioned, there are a couple of tracks. So you have the community track. The community track is aimed at builders in early stage projects that are being or have been built on Taiko. It's closed currently, so most of the applications go via partner track, and the partner track is actually mentioned that it's aimed for more established and mature projects, but it applies for all. So you just like, if you're applying for a grant, just go via the partner grant. And then and then of course the RFP, and RFP track is a bit different. It's more aimed at experienced builders who want to work on high impact projects that are submitted by Taiko Labs. And essentially, like, most of the projects go via partner track. And how do we actually assess the grants? Right, so because Taiko by its nature is a base rollup, so deploying on Taiko, because we inherit everything pretty much from Ethereum. So if you like our settlement layer, data availability layer, consensus layer, it's all Ethereum. Execution layer, like base rollups, they execute transactions off chain on its own. So as a matter of fact, like, it's pretty simple to deploy on Taiko from that perspective. And as a matter of fact, we don't really provide much of a deployment grant, though how we love to structure our grants is based on the milestones. So we say, like, okay, if you reach X amount in, let's say, TVL, you will unlock this much amount of grants. And then, like, the next level, if you reach, for example, Y amount, you unlock the next level, and so on and so forth. So we really prefer to be metrics focused. It also enables us to work closely with the projects, right, to also understand their pain points. And if they don't, like, for example, right, what else would do to ensure that they reach? We also plug into our Trailblazers program. I believe Joran mentioned a little bit about it, and ensure that they become part of the DApp leaderboard as well. And then, like, we do also certain marketing activities, but also for us, it's really important that the projects reach those metrics. So when we set up those metrics, we try to ensure that those metrics are somewhat realistic for the projects, right? So our expectations are in line, and then we work together, we'll collaborate together to make it happen. So for us, what is really imperative to avoid is, like, basically the projects that don't want to collaborate with us, because sometimes, let's say, you enter into a partnership with a project and that project is not responding to you, they are not like replying to you, they don't, like, basically they are being silent and siloed. And essentially, like, these are the type of the projects that we would like to avoid. We really would love to work closely with the collaborative teams. And common mistakes to avoid, right, when it comes to grants. So because like sometimes projects apply for grants, right, and then like they can receive rejection letters and so on, and you would like to know why. And in some cases, from majority of the ecosystems, you just receive an email like not disclosing the reason why. But in the end of the day, like for you to succeed, you have to understand, okay, what's the purpose of those grants, and how align your projects with those grants purpose, right? So you have to kind of read through that. You have to tailor, you have to understand, okay, what is this organization looking for, right? And you have to go maybe through their ecosystem page to understand, okay, what's going on within their ecosystem? Do they need a solution like mine, right? Do they already have something existing, like which looks like my solution, or like something that I built? So first thing first, like you should take into account is like tailoring your project will address the needs and goals outlined by the grant provider. And also, like when it comes as a grant provider, when I actually assess the projects, I want to see concrete plans and practical use cases. If it's a proposal which is not very well developed, even if the idea is good, like it's really hard to justify the grant because I might not understand the entire proposal. I might not understand the value it brings to the ecosystem. So it's really important that you provide as much information as possible, right? So like I don't have to come back to you and ask you for details. I would like to see like clearly defined approach, for example, detailed plan and information, which I can also like take and actually do a little bit of research myself. And then also the other thing that as a grant provider I'm looking for is to see like, okay, how are you going to use those funds like over time, and will this lead to a sustainable outcome? So the idea shouldn't be like, okay, like let's say we agree on a grant funding, like and then we'll provide you grants, and then maybe after 6 months the project will not be there, because that will be kind of a wasted effort for both of us, right? And it's not only from the monetary side, but also from the project side as well, because in the end of the day, we actually spend time together and we want to ensure like it's successful. But then if it's like we're spending this time and it doesn't lead to any sustainable outcome, it's kind of a wasted resource, right? So it's really important, like you provide kind of a detailed roadmap that outlines your project milestones, timelines, and what are you going to deliver, right? So basically you say, okay, I'm going to deliver XYZ TVL in this timeline, right? As a project milestone, you outline it. And then I'm going to deliver like this many users, or I'm going to deliver, for example, this product improvement. So you really have to kind of like be granular when you provide that information. And the other thing, like we also see, is like projects like how should they use the grants, right, effectively. First thing first, like I want to mention and emphasize is sometimes like I get to see that a lot of projects treat grants as a way of sustaining themselves and way of actually like, you know, building their solution. Like for example, they say, okay, you have to pay my server fees, you have to cover my these expenses, those expenses, but that's not the purpose behind the grant. The reason behind the grants is like the ideal purpose behind the grants is like basically for you to get those funds and build, like for you to be enabled to build that solution. But that doesn't mean that any foundation or organization or labs have to cover your, let's say, monthly expenses. So in order for you to actually be good at, like, be solid at managing your budget and tracking expenses, you have to have kind of also in the back of your mind, like a detailed budget plan, and you have to monitor your expenses. Like you have to understand, like, for example, if I want to deploy on chain XYZ, what will be my costs associated with that? Like how much am I going to spend? So let's say like you're looking at Taiko, you have to have that in the back of your mind, like what are your costs, right, in the end of the day. And also, you have to, like, in order to have a great relationship with the grant provider, like if you want to in the future to kind of say like, okay, let's say you receive the first grant and you maybe in the future you will want to apply for another grant. Like you want to establish like great relationship with the grant provider, and you have to be transparent, right, regarding how those funds are used. You can always deliver progress reports. You can say like, okay, we achieved this milestone and here's our progress report. And you can actually also establish like a regular communication schedule or plan with the grant provider. Like you say like, okay, let's have a conversation or call like every 2-3 weeks to see where we're standing, where we're heading. You know, that will also create kind of a more amicable relationship with the grant provider, and the grant provider will be like, okay, this is a really solid project that the team is trying their best to achieve their milestones, and they're working closely with us. Hence, like it's a very valuable partner to a certain extent. And then also like grants can serve tools for you to actually attract further funding, right? So what do I mean here? You can always, let's say like, mention that you received a grant from foundation or labs or whatever like XYZ, and you can approach other partners or VCs down the line and engage your community. You can basically, after like receiving your grant and reaching certain milestones, you can actually share that information in the social media with your community. And then like, for example, down the road, if you're raising for your project and you want to pitch to the VCs, you can actually showcase this as your success story. So you basically can say like, okay, like when we started, we secured grants from XYZ, and now like we need additional funding to help us scale the project. And also, what's really important, like you also have to encourage your community to contribute feedback, or participate in governance, or even provide additional funding through token sales or crowdfunding campaigns. And what is really necessary also, like how can you use those grants and what can the potential impact of those be, right? So projects can use grants to actually build educational materials, tutorials, and documentation that can help onboard new users and developers into the ecosystem. So it's also one key thing to remember, because a lot of the times you see different solutions which are basically built by developers for developers, but that shouldn't be your goal as a project, right? Your goal as a project should be like, how do I attract real users? And sometimes average users, they don't really understand the technicalities behind, they might not understand actually the technicalities behind your solution. So in the end of the day, what you want to ensure is that you have proper tools and materials to be able to onboard those new users. And I can give you one example. So for example, Pendle, one of the leading DeFi protocols in the space, when they launched initially, they really had a hard time, for example, to attract users. And there's a reason why, because first of all, their product was quite niche, but also in the end of the day, it was like not very clear how to utilize their product. And as a matter of fact, they spent some time on actually building this educational materials and tutorials for them to be able, like, kind of, to onboard more users. And they created videos, they actually translated them into the languages, and that actually kind of contributed to their further success and growth. And then also, like, what's really important, like, funding can also be allocated to building tools that enhance the user experience, such as wallets, dashboards, or analytics platform, right? So user experience is one of the key actual elements in this space, I would say. And, like nowadays, pretty much every project is focused on the user experience, because nowadays, like, we want to essentially bring more users into the space. And then the more like actually dashboards or analytical platforms you provide the users with, the more transparency you bring into the space, and the more information they can actually get from it. And also, like, you can use the grants to incentivize community contributions, like, for example, via campaigns, bug bounties, or funding smaller initiatives that, like, align with the project's broader goals. So it's basically like, how do you want to develop and incentivize your community as well? One of the key things to remember is that, like, community is the backbone of every Web3 project. So essentially for you, you want to keep them intact as well, and you want to kind of incentivize them and, ensure that they're there for you and they contribute to the success of your project. So yeah, that's all about the grants. I know that it has been like lots of information, but if you have any specific questions or anything you would like to ask me, I would like to pause here and hear your questions.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Nikki. I got a couple questions. So as a member of the grant committee, it's kind of similar question to what I asked PG. You are also head of DeFi, so you have like a very deep knowledge in this vertical. What do you think is missing from some of the primitives that we see in other chains that would really stand out as a project and a grant applicant?
Sure. So I can give you a little bit of an overview there. So, right, if you look at our current DeFi ecosystem, we do have a bunch of DEXs, we do have a bunch of lending and borrowing protocols. I mean, like when it comes also to DEXs and lending and borrowing protocols, you can still have a variety of them, right? So like you have UniV3 forks, you have, for example, Algebra, concentrated liquidity DEXs, and then you have UniV2 forks and Solidly forks and Balancer forks. So I would say like from my, like when it comes to DEXs, I would definitely push for another Solidly fork if possible, like maybe a little bit like with more, I would say, interesting ideas, innovative ideas and approaches there. And then like when it comes to lending and borrowing protocols, it's kind of like, again, you can have a variety of them. You have like Aava V2, Aava V3 compound forks as well. And again, like, if you can come up with an interesting idea that doesn't exist within the Taiko ecosystem, I would be more than happy to look into it. And of course, like down the road, right? Like we still don't have synthetics, we still don't have like, let's say, options protocols, we still don't have yield aggregators. So we don't have a fully composable DeFi ecosystem from the product perspective. So there's a lot of room to build and innovate, I would say. I mean, we also recently onboarded predictions market, like, for example, Robinos. But if you're also building some sort of a prediction markets, that would be cool as well. I mean, if you're also building something like Pump.fun, I don't know, and, some developers, builders do that. I mean, I certainly do see it interesting, but I can see it becoming more interesting when your ecosystem is a bit more mature than ours. I think like we still need to focus on primitive. But if you're building like, for example, interesting LRT products, or if you're building like interesting yield-bearing assets, that would be also cool. So yeah, I think there's a lot of ideas where you can provide like innovative solutions.
Great. I think RWAs is another one of those narratives that is hot that I haven't seen a project doing it super well that like has scaled, and I think it's potentially one of the things that Taiko could be known for in the future.
Correct. It just like with RWAs, I mean, like what you have to keep in mind, I mean, there are different solutions that revolve right around RWAs. So let's say you can have a tokenization platform, which helps you like the others to tokenize, I don't know, real estate or whatever. And then like, which is a technical solution, right? And then you can have like basically a DEX, which trades like those RWAs. The problem is that with RWAs, I mean, like if you look at 2018, it's the same concept as security token offering, STOs. So, but the problem is that like, there's also regulatory, concept around it. So like, and if it's regulation involved, like it will be much more expensive, I think, to a certain extent to build and to like, to bring it to the market. So that's something to keep in mind. Yes, I think technically the solutions are not that hard, but like you have to take also the regulatory aspect into account as well.
That makes sense. Yeah. Another question I had was around like the VC and ecosystem funding aspect of things. So I think maybe that's worth double clicking on and highlighting that like we're taking folks from the beginning of their journey. Maybe they don't have a project yet. Maybe they do have an existing project and they can apply it for the hackathon. That will transition them into a grant. But then as they grow, they might need some additional funding. So what does it look like? Are we able to connect them with VCs in our network? Are we able to invest in them directly? That kind of thing.
Sure, I can give you a little bit of an overview. So basically, the grant is, as I said, right, it's nothing more like you can look at it as an initial funding, but it's not really, it's something like to kind of like that gives you a possibility to oil the machine while you're building, right? So you're building a solution, you want to get your MVP out there, and it just gives you the first kind of like a funding to get that, like, first version of the product out there. Like, don't try to make it perfect, because we also do understand that was probably with the grant amount that you receive, it's not going to be super perfect or something like this, but like it gives you a product to iterate on. That's the idea behind the grant. And then like as you grow that product, as you grow the community around it, as you like basically like, add additional layers of products on top of it, let's say if it's a DEX, or if it's a lending and borrowing protocol, or if it's a synthetics trading platform, whatever you're building, like the more your products introduce, the more like you grow your community, the more partnerships you enter with different providers, with different ecosystem dApps, you kind of like your product becomes also more and more mature, right? And as a matter of fact, you reach at a certain extent to a point that we're like, okay, I am mature enough to actually now maybe do a race for the project, right? And then, of course, there's a different ways you can do a raise. You can do, for example, if you issue a token, you can do a raise if you for equity as well. And I mean, like, generally speaking, as PJ mentioned, don't issue a token just for the sake of it. So like in the end of the day, the space is too convoluted, so you don't need to add an additional token and then like wonder why it didn't take off, right? So you have to kind of put also certain thought behind it, especially behind the tokenomics, so it makes sense, right, for the actual users to buy it. Otherwise, you'll be trying to kind of understand what can you do to ensure that there's a demand for your token, or like, for example, like why people are selling my token and no one is buying my token. Like in the end of the day, like there should be like a healthy balance between the supply and demand, right? And which should lead to an organic price discovery. And as a matter of fact, right, so how do we support with fundraising? So as Taiko, we do have like kind of a venture arm where we basically say like, okay, we invest in our ecosystem projects. So we kind of like look at the deck, we look at the information that the project provides, we look at the growth trajectory, what have they achieved or what have they built. It doesn't mean that they need like they raised funds in the past. No, they can be pretty early, but in the end of the day, like it also should make sense for us, like whether we see it as an innovative project, like which will add kind of like bring advantages to our ecosystem. And essentially, like we do analyze, we just don't lead, we actually co-invest. So if like we do expect a lead investor in the round, but we also nevertheless we do our due diligence. We look at the tokenomics, for example. We look at the team. We look at the technical solution. We do those checks, but still we don't lead the round. So and our checks, they range from 100K to 250K, and usually we invest below 60 million FDV. So that's a little bit of information.
Yeah, no, that's great information. I think that like it really rounds out the whole journey from ideation to MVP to like launching and blasting off as a fully fledged project. And that's at least the aim, I think, with the Grant Factory, is to really find those diamonds in the rough that want to continue building a business in the ecosystem. Yeah, and I think that's also like worth re-mentioning that the community track is closed for the grants program, and so this is a pathway through which people can really get those young projects into the in front of the grants committee. So I think that's also a really important thing to mention, that otherwise that you'd have to build up your project a little bit more to kind of catch the eye of the grants committee. But this is your opportunity to get in there early, get your foot in the door, and get those opportunities, get the oil for the machine flowing, as you put it. I think that is a great analogy there.
I mean, in the end of the day, like, don't be afraid. Just if you think like you've got something, just build it, ship it. In the end of the day, you can always reiterate on your product. You don't have to be stuck with your initial idea. And, you can always check and see what works and what doesn't, right? Sometimes we believe blindly that something we aspire to build is going to work immediately, but it doesn't happen. So we kind of have to be, as a builder, you need to be able to iterate. And I think if you're open to that, like I'm sure you guys will be able to deliver amazing solutions, and would be really happy to kind of have you as part of our ecosystem. But as I mentioned, like just build. So I mean, if I could code, I would be shipping every day something. So
Amazing. Yeah, with that, I think we'll wrap up this session, but it's been really helpful, Nikki, giving people the ideas on how to build a great a great grant and really set themselves up for success. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And yeah, so that brings us to the end of our workshop session this time. We've got lots more coming for you down the line, more technical workshops, more entrepreneurial focused workshops. So keep an eye on our socials and the DoorHack site for info on that. And with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Jan to give us some final words from DoorHack side.
Yeah. So thank you so much. On behalf of DoorHacks, we're super excited to support this hackathon. And today we had 2 incredible workshops about go-to-market strategy by PG and also like navigating through the grant process from Nikki. I think the audience has learned a lot. Maybe we can share some like socials again, like what's the best way for hackers to reach out to you and get some support from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the Taiko Twitter page is going to be a great place to find information. There's also going to be our Discord. That link, I think I can grab it for you really quickly. Yes, there it is. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lynn. Yeah, so it's Taiko XYZ on Discord. That's going to be probably the best 2 places, Twitter and Discord. And when you get over to the Discord, there will be a self-selecting roles section. Just go in there, self-select developer. Even though we know it takes more than just developers, we need marketers, we need business folks, we need designers, all that. Just self-select the developer role, and that will unlock for you the category where all our developer chat is, and the Grant Factory specific chat there is. And there'll be a subsection in there, a thread where you can pitch your ideas and give us an idea of what your skills are. If you're looking for a team, or if you have an idea that needs a team to build it, that's a place to land and make sure all of that fun stuff is happening.
Okay, sounds good. So guys, join their Discord. And once again, thank you very much, PG, Nikki, and also Joran for this great session today. There will be more sessions, so please also feel free to join the next one, subscribe to our YouTube and Binance Live to not miss out on any of the amazing and cool upcoming sessions. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Yes. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.